Hello and welcome to our live stream review of the newest Evil Dead movie, Evil Dead Rise. Not only that, but this is our first episode of the Cool Kids with a special guest. Everyone, please welcome my older brother, Drew. He's a little shy. But, yeah, this is going to be a spoiler review. You know who we all are. You know the routine. So, let's get started. So when I think of a franchise that has kept up the consistency in terms of quality, I think of Evil Dead. The first three are some of my favorite movies of all time. I can't pick a favorite because I love them all for different reasons. I liked the remake, and I thought Ash vs. Evil Dead was a great show, and it sucked it got canceled and ended on a cliffhanger. Weird. For some reason, a weird ad just popped up on Letterboxd. And for some reason, it was a baby crying. Anyway, I'm gonna have to pull this up on my phone. So when it was announced we were finally getting a new movie after what feels like for so long, you bet your ass I was excited. In fact, this was right up there with Across the Spider-Verse as my most anticipated movie of the year. After finally watching it last night, I can gladly say the consistency continues. We have another awesome entry in this franchise. This was such a blast to watch from beginning to end. First off, the acting is really good. Lily Sullivan, Alyssa Sutherland, Morgan Davies, Gabriel Eccles, and Nell Fisher knock it out of the park and have great chemistry with each other. I cared about the characters. I wanted them to get out okay. And, unlike most horror movies, the characters were actually smart. What a thought! Alyssa Sutherland is especially creepy as hell in this movie. When she gets possessed, and speaking of which, the Deadites in this were as great as always. I love how mean and cruel and ruthless they were, and their dialogue was great. The over-the-top blood and gore were awesome. As always, I always complain about CGI blood, but with here, this worked so well. And I especially love the shots of this movie. We have a lot of the clever camera angles that we expect from the Evil Dead movies, especially when they're looking through the door and she's just standing out there looking at them, and she's killing those two other people. And I loved the dark humor. It worked extremely well here, unlike a movie we're going to be talking about next week. It was actually funny. I love the references and callbacks to the original movies as well, such as the Deadites chanting "Dead by Dawn," Beth saying "Come get some," the cameo from Bruce Campbell, the nod to the eyeball scene from Evil Dead 2, the elevator scene giving the nod to the possessed trees. Hell, there's even references to The Shining, A Nightmare on Elm Street, and The Thing. Do I have any issues with Evil Dead Rise? No, not really. This gets all of the elements right as to why we love these movies. For the dark humor, the clever camera angles, the over-the-top blood and gore, the references, and the Deadites overall. This is how you do a soft reboot and continuation to this franchise. Take notes, David Gordon Green. This was so much fun, and I had a smile on my face the whole time. I can easily see this being all my favorite movies of the year. If you're a fan of this franchise or just love good horror, go see this in theaters. You will not regret it. And my rating is a perfect 10. Right. Drew?
All right. So my speech isn't going to be quite as good as that. I'm not exactly a speech writer, so I just have a list of key points. I'm going to start off. My rating was a 7. The intro had me fooled. I honestly thought that this movie was going to be shit when the intro played, but then the actual title screen came up, and I was like, okay, there's some actual value to this. This is going to be good. That was impressive. The gore, fantastic. I'm a big gore guy. Killing children was pretty surprising. When I saw the kid go flying across the hallway with no arms through the peephole, I was like, did they just kill a kid in a movie? That's nuts. I haven't seen that in a while. The peephole thing was definitely one of my favorite cinematic shots. I thought that was really impressive, and I'm glad that they kept using it and didn't just use it as a gimmick. I thought it was neat. The intelligence of the children was impressive. I'm really mad that the daughter opened the door. I really thought that she wasn't going to do it, but she did it. That's like kind of one of the things that pissed me off. It's like, why did you have to do that? That's so cliche. I enjoyed how goofy it was because it was just like the other ones. It was like that nice Evil Dead goofiness. I dug that. What else do I have? Mommy. I made sure to put that in there. Now, reasons I gave it a 7. I worked like really hard to decide why I gave it a 7 because I honestly like I don't know if it was a 10. Like I wouldn't really give it a 10. I thought the acting was like kind of mid for some of the characters. Like I thought some of the characters were boring, like the neighbors and stuff like that. They were just like they were legitimately panicked, but then they were also kind of lifeless. And like that very much because like I would be pissing and screaming if my house started shaking and my kids were missing. I don't know. I don't feel like they reacted as strongly as they probably could have. I know they didn't really know what was happening in the parking garage at the time, but I don't know. They just seemed kind of lifeless when they were panicking about the earthquake. Um, I have some plot hole questions. Maybe it just was me not paying attention, but you guys might be able to answer some of these things. Um, why was the Necronomicon there? I know there was some sort of mention of 3. There was like maybe 3 books. I don't know if I was listening to the right thing. I'm right. Awesome. Okay. Perfect. I thought the church shit was kind of stupid. Like the bad boy priest. He was like, "Oh, now I'm evil." I thought that was kind of dumb. So Devin answered my third one with the Deadites. I didn't realize that they were Deadites. I was trying to figure out why the girl in the intro was possessed and went to the cabin because there was no Necronomicon at the cabin. But if she's a Deadite, it doesn't really matter. Which brings me to my next one. Is that cabin a cabin from the original one? Hopefully you guys can answer me questions. No, it was not. All right, perfect. You said cameo from Bruce Campbell. I didn't see that. Was that just the chainsaw and the shotgun? Yeah.
He was one. He was one of the priests on the voice recording.
Oh, so it's a voice one.
I didn't even notice that.
Okay, perfect.
I'm gonna be seeing it again tomorrow, so maybe I'll catch it this time.
Yeah, I would definitely watch it again. I really enjoyed the movie. Was it a 10? But I liked it. Maybe I'll go 8. So you want to give me an 8, Devin? I'll go 8. Thank you, guys.
All right, here's Drew's rating, an 8 out of 10. John?
Drew's new rating. There you go. But yes. Okay, so this franchise certainly isn't with the maggots now. It has been a decade since the Evil Dead franchise hit the big screen, with the only thing in the interim was the incredibly awesome Starz series Ash vs. the Evil Dead, which I am still pissed that they canceled along with Devin. So how does this live up to the franchise's hot streak? Will this be in tune with the big 3, or will it fall to the wayside like Alvarez's piss poor attempt? Well, I'll tell you right now. All the acting was stellar. It was pretty much an unknown cast, and all of them did rather well. When I saw all the characters for the first time, I was like, oh god, these fuckers are going to be annoying stock characters or overly edgy douchebags, aren't they? Luckily, they weren't. They were identifiable, you cared about them, and they actually felt like real characters. So when bad stuff happened to them, you actually gave a shit. Wow, what a fucking thought. Lily Sullivan was easily the standout, but Nell Fisher was surprisingly really good as well. I have said this before, and when a kid actor can at least be somewhat competent in a story, I think that's a win. But Fisher was quite good despite this. It wasn't like just regular tolerable competency. She was actually really good. All of them were. There isn't a ton to them, but there is enough that makes you give a shit. The plot and story were pretty good, especially for an Evil Dead movie. There was a more bite to it than normal. Most of them are pretty much just demons attacking people, and I love it for that, don't get me wrong. But here, there's a bit more to it, adding themes of parenthood and possibly generational trauma. It's showcased very little and not in your face about it like fucking Encanto, but those ideas were presented in some sort of way, albeit very briefly. How the idea of Beth having something growing inside her that she doesn't want parallels the demons inside the possessed growing inside them that they don't want. I felt that was an interesting idea. Then the callbacks to the rest of the movies were great, but used sparingly, like an Easter egg here, a quote there, that type of thing. I was smiling in the theater whenever I saw them referenced. It was just enough to keep fans satisfied, but not too overbearing where it becomes The Force Awakens or something along those lines. The effects were brilliant. A lot of it was practical, similar to other entries, and it absolutely fucking worked. But the CGI was also really good as well. The past few reviews I've mentioned CGI blood, and usually I hate it. Like as Devin said, I usually hate CGI blood, but the past few times that we've seen them, I think the last 3 reviews, including this one, I've mentioned CGI blood, and all 3 times it's actually done pretty well. So I'm shocked. Maybe they're starting to learn their lesson with it. I don't know. But even with that, this has got to be the goriest Evil Dead movie, barring the climax from the remake, because that simply beats everything, unfortunately. The cinematography was also similar enough to Raimi's with the zooms and the Dutch angles, but it also managed to do its own thing, and I liked that. Like how I know there's a specific term for it, but I forget, where someone's like really really focused in the foreground, that depth of field where someone's really focused in the foreground, but it's like sort of blurry, and then you have the people in the background. It looks like 2 different shots, but it's in the same shot. I forget the name of it, but I like when they do that as well.
Parallax.
I think that's really intriguing. What is it?
Parallax.
Maybe.
When it shows depth in the layers.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. But yes, I'll go with that. I fucking, have a degree in this shit, but I can't remember that. Anyway. So with this, I feel like having Raimi's influence, but Cronin doing his own thing is how you can mostly describe this movie. It has just enough of the trademarks of the franchise to make it feel like part of the franchise, but doing its own thing and clearly having its own vision. Unlike the remake, it's not having an identity crisis. It knows what it is and it embraces its evil deadness, but Cronin still has a vision with what he wants to do. Cronin understands the qualities of what Evil Dead is. He goes back to the original film, sees what works about it, and amplifies that. The original managed to blend disturbing and over-exaggerated tones exceptionally well. And with that, I think this did it really well. Hold on, I'm all over the place. I'm sorry. So with that, as I've said before, maybe not on this channel, but on my own channel, I have said many, many, many times that the first is in a class all by itself in terms of how it handles its tone, because there really isn't anything like it. However, Evil Dead Rise manages to get close to that off-kilter tone of the first, but in a modern context. It feels like this movie was almost made for everybody. Hardcore Evil Dead fans, hardcore remake fans, people who don't like the first one because of the hokiness, but also people who love the original like myself. It's a crowd pleaser, I guess, in a way, in an extremely bloody, fucked up sort of way. But my review has already gotten too long, so I'll wrap it up here. Evil Dead Rise is a fucking triumph with what it manages to do, and I absolutely adored every second of it. If there is a sequel, I pray to every higher power in the known universe that Cronin helms it. Even if he doesn't, I eagerly await the greatness he will make in the future. Lee Cronin certainly understands this franchise more than Fede Alvarez ever hoped he could. With that, I also give it a 10 out of 10.
Rob?
Okay, hold on a minute. Okay, I'm ready. Okay, so let me say that this is one movie I was really hyped for the moment I saw the trailer. I do love the original Evil Dead movies, the Ash versus Evil Dead show, and I don't care what this guy says. I actually did enjoy the 2013 remake. Sue me. The trailers had me hyped from the word go with the things you pretty much would expect from the Evil Dead movies: possessions, family and friends in peril, over the top gore, etc. After seeing it, I am so happy to say, I just had such a blast watching this film. The performances all around are great, including Lily Sullivan, Elisa Sutherland, Morgan Davis, and everyone else. So everyone does a really fantastic job with their performance. I thought the film was very well shot and does create the same feel of the original in some certain aspects, like the iconic tracking shot that was used in the opening. But it also does it in other unique ways, like the peephole kind of way, which that was very interesting. The score is also well composed, and as you would expect from an Evil Dead film, the kills were so brutal and over the top. These are easily the highlights of the film. Normally, I would have a problem with the constant use of CGI blood in horror films. I'm looking at you, Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. But here, I thought that it was incorporated very well here. The characters were pretty much very interesting and unique. I mean, there's maybe a few that get a little screen time, and I really wish that we had been able to develop some of these characters a little bit more. But I feel like that they were, for the most part, they were done very well, more particularly with the family. And I will say that I do like the whole different setting of this film compared to like the other ones. The typical cabin in the woods setting has been done to death in these movies, and I'm so glad that they were able to change the location and so that it takes place in the apartment building in the city. Just make it a different kind of style. It's different and unique take for an Evil Dead film. And I do like how it also pays homage to the original Evil Dead movies, like the moments like shooting an eyeball into someone's mouth, or how the demon will keep saying, "I'll swallow your soul," all from Evil Dead 2. If I had any problems, like they're pretty much like more nitpicks or anything. Like I would say, I wish that there was a little bit, we got to see more of the characters before shit hit the fan, just for development. And the fact that when the little girl opened the door, the front door, that was pretty dumb. I'll give it that. I mean, but overall, this is a movie I had a blast watching. I will still say Evil Dead 2 still remains my favorite Evil Dead movie, but I could see this being at the very least in the top 3. If you want a fun, over-the-top horror film, this is one movie to check out. I am in agreement with my man Drew. I wouldn't say that this was a perfect 10 out of 10, but I'm going to go with a 9 out of 10.
All right. There's Rod's rating. Rome?
So just in case my internet's a little wacky, but hopefully you guys can hear me pretty well. So what makes Evil Dead Rises a hit compared to the remake is that it uses the elements of the first 2 films while making an original story. For example, the film has a few jump scenes, but it relies heavily on the creepy and disturbed and some of the dark humor to balance the seriousness throughout the entire film. I really like how they made the little detail sounds, like the little cracked knuckles, little door slams, or little things like that you hear on a daily basis. They made it really creepy. Evil Dead Rises has a bit of that old school horror film style that many horror fans like myself will enjoy while watching the movie. The biggest standout, obviously, is Alyssa Sutherland, who played Ellie, or the mom Deadite. She is terrifyingly great in this film. Of all the performances, she will be the most talked about coming out of the film. She uses her whole body movement, her facial features, and her terrifying smile that puts Art the Clown to shame. Lily Sullivan, who played her sister Beth, and Neil Fish, who played her niece Cassie, was good. Didn't find anybody with a bad performance from Evil Dead Rises because they're either good or solid performances. This film will push the disturbed violence, and the 90-minute runtime helps to really keep everything short and not dragging out. There are going to be a few scenes fans will be talking about. Lee Cronin, who wrote and directed the film, found a way to rejuvenate Evil Dead. Serious, well paying homage to the first 2 films, adding his own spin to the series. My rating is a 10 out of 10. Go see this movie.
Hell yeah. Mark?
And then there was one. This movie kicks so much fucking ass. It doesn't even wait either. It goes right from your throat from the very beginning and doesn't let go until the extremely bloody end. The first scene very effectively sinks its razor sharp claws into you, rips your fucking head off, and takes a mighty shit down your neck, wasting no time getting straight to the gore, with a very nice homage to the OG in the opening shot. It piques your interest from the get-go, thus allowing the narrative to step back a little and breathe with some character development before baptizing us in blood again. It's quite cleverly used as a terrifying framing device that bookends our little story. Speaking of which, Lee Cronin wisely kept the story simple but effective. Beth, played by Lily Sullivan, a somewhat aimless 20-something roadie, discovers she's pregnant at a show and runs to big sister / single mom Ellie, played by Alyssa Sutherland, for help and advice. Ellie is the responsible one, the mother figure who shakes her head at her baby sister's shenanigans, while Beth is the unreliable one with an inferiority complex who isn't sure she has what it takes to be a mom. Both women shine in their respective roles and have great chemistry with each other. It makes their relationship that much more believable and relatable. When Ellie's 3 kids, wannabe rocker Danny, wannabe protester Bridget, and professional badass Cassie, played by Morgan Davies, Gabrielle Eccles, and Nell Morgan, respectively, stumble across the Necronomicon in an old underground bank vault following a well-timed earthquake, they unwittingly unleash literal hell into their little apartment building. Like their fictional mother and aunt, the kids also have great chemistry and do a solid job in their own right, each with their own personality, always at odds with one another, with your typical sibling rivalry, yet still loving and supportive at the end of the day. I especially thought the scene where Danny and Bridget grab Cassie and tickle her on the bed was a nice little character moment to establish how much they love each other. Their little family dynamic is challenged by the absence of their recently departed father, and that absence is felt throughout the film in various ways. Plus, as my son said, Cassie's twisted creation, Staffany, is the best character in the movie. The fact that Lee Cronin takes the time to make you care about this adorable little family makes what comes after all the more gut-wrenching and frightening, even or perhaps especially when you see it coming a mile off. This is a perfect example of taking old ideas and familiar story beats and making them work. Once our little story is established, which happens again fairly briskly but effectively, the film hits the gas and shifts into high gear with a gore fest for the ages. Let's just say that somewhere Stanley Kubrick is smiling. Yet it's not just the gore, but the tone and atmosphere that makes this film so special. For one, the urban setting in an old apartment building is used very effectively. It feels claustrophobic, adding to the sense of terror, especially as one inhabitant after another falls prey to the evil as it closes in on the surviving family members. For another, Lee Cronin's well-written script nails the blend of horror and dark humor in a way we haven't seen since Evil Dead 2. For example, the scene where Cassie tells her Auntie Beth that she will make a good mom because she knows how to lie to kids works on several levels, as a cute little joke, as a horrifying commentary on their odds, and as a mark of Beth's character development. And in that character development, and it's that character development that centers the film, even in the midst of sheer dread. Alyssa Sutherland is especially terrifying, certainly one of the more memorable Deadites in the series, while Lily Sutherland's character development reminds me a lot of Ashes in the original. Like that beloved icon, she starts off weak and unsure of herself, but becomes a total badass by the end. She even nails one of his signature lines in the big finale, and it feels earned, too, thanks to a great performance. Speaking of that extremely bloody and memorable finale, Lee Cronin and his talented cast and crew unsurprisingly stick the landing on this one as well. The well-paced film draws you in more and more as it goes along, yet they save the best for last with a horrifying creature straight out of your worst nightmares, and likely homage to John Carpenter's classic film The Thing, stalking our survivors as they seek to escape their nightmarish prison. By the end, you find yourself cheering our unlikely heroines as they bathe in a shower of blood. It all feels very familiar in a good way, a loving tribute to the OG films that captures their spirit, yet does its own thing without disrespecting their memory. As I said in my review of another classic horror/comedy reboot, Ghostbusters Afterlife, that is how you do nostalgia. And that's why my rating is a 10 out of 10.
All right, and I have Zach sent me a voice message of his review, and I will play that right now.
If I gotta be honest, I'm not a fanatic of Evil Dead. I like a lot of the movies in the franchise. There's no bad film in the bunch at all. It's just not one that I love overall as a franchise. There's no specific sins that any of these films commit that I hold against them, or any specific flaws that I have with them. It's just overall not a franchise that I'm in love with, like say Halloween, Freddy, or Ghostface. But it is right there in the middle, as in if I ever pop on any of these movies, I can have a good time with them. But that being said, I will admit, I do love Army of Darkness. I loved the 2013 remake. And going into Evil Dead Rise, I was excited. They certainly caught my interest when they said that it was going to go from a straight-to-streaming film straight to a wide theatrical release. That's always a show of confidence and saying that they're proud of the movie that they have, so I was definitely interested to check it out. I'm not one of those entitled hardcore fanboys who only needs Bruce Campbell in every single film for it to be Evil Dead. I just want good gore, scary deadites, and even an interesting story to boot. And thankfully with Evil Dead Rise, I got exactly that. And surprisingly more. I would actually go so far as to say that this is the goriest of the Evil Dead films, and in the best of ways, it's also the bleakest in tone, which is saying a lot considering a lot of the shit that the previous films have done, especially the remake. I thought that the performance from the lead actress as the mother who eventually turns into the main Deadite was fantastic, both before and after she becomes possessed. And the performances from the other characters were pretty good too, like her children and then her sister that comes in, and even the neighbors that come in all give pretty memorable performances. But if I gotta be honest, the opening and the ending of the film kind of confused me, going with the whole one day earlier thing, and then ending with showing that the people from the very opening of the film, go into the opening. You get what I mean. You've seen the film. You get what I mean. But that being said, it was another solid Evil Dead movie. I would say it's actually one of my more favorites of the franchise. I like the acting and the very bleak tone that this movie is able to deliver while still having all the elements that a fan would want from Evil Dead, as in scary, intimidating deadites, some gnarly gore. Again, I really think this is the goriest of the Evil Dead movies. So with all that being said, I will give this a solid 9 out of 10. Definitely one of the better Evil Dead movies. Maybe top 3, or maybe even second favorite as far as I would rank it.
All right. I'd say he does kind of have a point about like the opening, because at first, I didn't know with the opening played, I didn't know what was happening. I'm okay, who are these people? And then the ending came where she was in the apartment complex the whole time, and that's when the force came out and possessed her.
I felt that was pretty obvious. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew, because from the previews were more confusing than the actual movie, because we knew that the main story was going to take place in the apartment building. I mean, that was where most of the preview was. So I was wondering how the fucking, campsite and the cabin would have factored into everything. It was kind of just a way to open it and end it.
Yeah.
Like the evil's not dead. I don't know why they did it. It was I didn't mind it. Like, it was totally fine. It was just like, it wasn't terribly needed, but I guess it was like kind of cool. It was a way to reference the original, but it also worked as sort of like getting into the action, like the inevitability of like the evil like going farther into the world. Maybe it teases a sequel, I don't know, but yeah, I mean, I loved it. When I was watching it, because I remembered what Mark was saying, how it like builds upon itself, how it just gets better and better and better. It definitely, like, I wouldn't say the opening was bad or anything. It just it was like, okay, slow, you're setting everything up, and then like once it ramps up, like you feel it ramping up. And I really liked that, and I really noticed that. Also, before I move along, Zach, he has terrible taste. Even though he liked this movie, he likes the weakest Evil Dead movie. So
yeah,
he's a fucking idiot. Anyway,
I mean, to be fair, it could be a lot worse.
I'm surprised he gave it a 9 out of 10.
He could like Halloween Ends.
Exactly.
Yep.
Which he does.
John.
Halloween Ends is better than the Evil Dead remake. There,
Thank you. Thank you.
But
But no,
the
just to
end-
back what up.
I'm just gonna say this: the remake is a decent, is an okay horror movie. It's an okay horror movie. It's a horrible, horrible Evil Dead movie. It is a horrible Evil Dead movie. It's a semi-decent little movie with the demons and the edgy and the torture porn. Okay, fine, whatever. It's a horrible Evil Dead movie. I don't
I
care
like
what
how I
anybody
said
says.
about Dark Knight Rises. It's okay it's good as a movie, but as a Batman movie, it sucks.
Basically.
And something I do wonder if she was possessed by the Deadite like the whole time, as she was like when she was already at the cabin. Does that mean like the Deadite version of her was just driving along?
I
would
imagine
love to
okay,
see
because
it.
I was thinking about that too. I imagine that it was like it took a while. Because I mean, remember
Yeah.
what was it?
Mhm.
Ellen Sandweiss, Cheryl from the original. It took a while for her
Yes,
to like
exactly.
become Deadite. Like even at like there was a good while between tree rape and full demon makeup that there was a good amount of time
Exactly.
before it like took hold. So I imagine that like she probably, got knocked out and then eventually like came to a couple minutes later and then was like, oh, that was weird, and then like drove off. And she's like, I'm getting out of here because blood everywhere. This is scary. I'm not dealing with this shit.
Well,
So she's
yeah.
like, fuck this.
Well, I mean, she went
So-
with her friends, so it could have been that her friends drove. I mean, because
No, but she was the one driving. She said, "Oh, I'll pick you
Yeah.
up in 15 minutes."
yeah, but I
she
mean, I'm
was
saying
about to take a
after
call.
she picked up her friends could have said, "Look, you don't look so hot. Let me drive."
Yeah, because they probably could have thought she
Yeah.
was traumatized from whatever happened.
Yeah,
There's
yeah,
some
yeah.
lag
Right.
time with
With
that.
yeah,
Mhm.
I agree with
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. it
Also,
takes
Yeah.
time.
I did want to mention what talk about something what Drew said. You said that they actually did mention that there were 3 books.
Yeah, it was in the first
Because-
record, I think.
That was my
Yeah.
theory because I didn't hear that because it was really hard to hear the record. Like it was so scratchy and I have like shit hearing nowadays. Actually, no, I have selective hearing nowadays. I can hear stuff either really, really well or really, really terribly.
Very good.
What if
So,
that's meant as an homage
I didn't
to
hear any
All
of
Their
it.
Darkness?
Yeah.
Lee Cronin
Um,
did it say in an interview that it is one of the 3 books
Yeah.
from Army.
yeah,
Army of
I would
Darkness. We did
I would
confirm that.
imagine that that there's 3 of them, that the Bruce Campbell movies, that's one of them, the remake
Right.
is another, and then this is another one. So
That's
there's 3.
exactly how
Got
he
it.
phrased
So
yeah.
I would imagine that that's in order for some way to tie in the continuity at least somewhat properly, since this continuity is so fucked it makes the James Bond continuity seem normal, so or the Godzilla continuity seem fucking normal. So
Or
and this
X-Men.
has less
Yeah,
movies.
for real.
Yeah.
So I just love this movie. I was like watching it and I'm like, it's like just watching this on screen, like 10 minutes. I'm like, okay, this is way better than the remake. And then watching it more, I'm like, okay, this is like better than Army of Darkness. And then like by the end, I'm like, I think this might be better than Evil Dead 2. Like, because I was
Wow.
It's
Wow.
tough to
Here,
make 'cause I still
for
like
anyone who
the
doesn't
original.
know,
Wow.
for anyone who
One, two.
doesn't know, I actually prefer the original to Evil Dead 2. I love Evil Dead 2 a lot. It's just,
Yeah.
and it is one of my favorite movies. And shout out to my ongoing series right now of me chronicling my top 100 favorite movies. Please go watch that on my channel. It's my
And
lowest.
shout out to the
watch
poster
channel.
right behind you.
Yeah.
But I love Evil Dead 2. It is one of my favorite movies. It's up there. It's in my top 100. I love the movie. It is so good. It's just the problem I kind of have with it. It's not the best horror comedy that a lot of people make it out to be. And then the fans also kind of ruin it for me a little bit because of how much people ride its dick. It's like, it's really good. And is the hype probably worth it? Probably. It's just like the fans kind of ruin it for me quite a bit. And I do think there are better horror comedies in terms of blending of horror and comedy. So, but that's just me. I still love the movie. It is one of my, I gotta keep saying that because then I'm gonna have all the fucking Evil Dead 2 fans gonna come on my ass and fucking sending me death threats and shit. I love the movie. I adore
do
the
what,
movie.
your
I
ass?
adore
You give it a
every
10 out of
Evil Dead
10.
movie except the remake. I
You're
adore
gonna do what
all
on
of
your
them.
ass? That's
The
hot.
fuck.
Wait, hold on.
Evil Dead 2 fans, but like, it just, because the thing is,
Oh my.
but yeah,
Thank you, George
that was
Takei.
the thing that made me really love this movie, and it's interesting because I was actually having a conversation with somebody who likes the remake more than the original, and he was talking about how this movie worked for him, and how he felt the remake did it better, but he's like, this was really good because of this and this. I'm like, oh, that's really interesting that I like it because of this, this, and this, and like, and that's what I mean in terms of like a crowd pleaser, because it's like, it's me, someone who hates the remake but adores the original, and then you have this other person who really likes the original, really likes the remake, but also really likes the original, but likes the remake more than the original, and we could like grasp different things from it, and like, but like both feed our different ideas and thoughts on the film, and with that, I think Cronin did so much well with this, like in a way. And again, I'm not shitting on the original because again, I love it, but it's almost like a modern version of the original, but like done in a way that Sam Raimi couldn't do back in 1979.
Higher production value, of course. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because 1979 is when it was being filmed, but but that's what like that's what made it work. But the thing is, it doesn't like, but it doesn't like tear down the original. It doesn't like shit on the original.
No,
It's just
absolutely
like
not.
it's just like it takes the ideas of the original, what it was trying to do, and then that just puts it in the modern context, as I mentioned.
Yeah.
It was so, and it did that like so well without shitting on it or without making fun of it. It's just like, okay, this, and took the horror and ignoring the horror comedy of Evil Dead 2, even though it does have comedy, ignoring the full-fledged comedy of Army of Darkness. Let's take the horror of Evil Dead and put that in a modern context, and they made it work so well, and that's why I loved it, because it's just like, by putting it in a modern context, you're I don't want to say redoing, but I don't know what the right word is, but like
reimagine.
I guess that's the best word.
Yeah.
Reimagine
reinvigorating.
tone that Sam Raimi
That's a
did.
good
Yeah.
point. I like
That
that.
works.
Like,
I agree with some reinvigorating.
Right.
yeah, reinvigorate anything that's positive about it. It just like
Reanimating.
possibly.
Sure.
But he just did that so well, because there's nothing like the original Evil Dead, not even the sequels. It's just like, it's so unique with its tone and its storytelling and how it did itself, because the indiness of it, like the independent nature of it, and like the low budget nature of it, and like how it like has that weird hokiness and over exaggerated tone, but also has like this disturbing brutality of it, and it like blended together so well, and it does it here. Like, you have that brutality, like swallowing glass and burning people and all that shit, but you also have that like, it doesn't, like, once you read the book, you escape, you're out of reality, you are in another world.
Right.
You are in the world that the demons like create for you almost, and there's like almost like that cartoony tone, and that's what like works about it, but not in a cartoony, in sort of a bad way. It's just like not reality.
Exactly.
And I really love that. And I know I'm talking too much. I just love Evil Dead so much. So I'm gonna shut up. You guys talk.
Well, I mean,
sorry.
I
I'm
think
so
Jack-
sorry. I know.
You're good,
I'm
man.
sorry.
You're fine. You're fine, man.
No, you're fine. Because it's great to hear you. Because when you were
You're
were on
passionate. You
fire,
love
man. You're
talking
great.
about it.
Yeah, you look.
I
You
to sum it up, I think Jack said it best. Like we were talking about it last night as I was writing my review, and he was like, that was actually scary. That was actually scary. That was
Yeah.
actually really good. Yes,
That's,
I mean,
that's why I think I love it so much.
Yeah.
It really was.
And John, I think you said before that you think that the first Evil Dead should be a film that should be studied like in film class or something.
Oh yeah, definitely. In terms of like, I do think, And again, probably people are gonna, not you guys, but like people in the comments maybe would probably laugh at me for this because it is so hokey. That's the thing, is it's so hokey. Like the first one, it's like so
It
weird.
is.
And I love it for that because again, as the tones, as I was mentioning before. But in terms of people who want to be filmmakers, people who want to make movies, they need to watch The Evil Dead. They need to watch it.
Agreed.
It is imperative to watch because the thing I was talking about in terms of people making fun of me, it is easily, to me, the greatest achievement in independent filmmaking in terms of a production sense, specifically the production sense. I'm not talking about what it did for horror, although it did a lot. That honor would go to Halloween more so. Again, indie production, that is a great achievement in terms of the legacy of what it did for horror because it changed the game. Evil Dead 2 on a smaller level, but it's just like it's like because the obstacles that Tappert, Raimi, and Campbell, as well as the rest of the crew, went through is just the shining example of human perseverance. Like they did so much with so little and with everything against them. And that is just, anybody needs to study that because it shows that as a filmmaker, film production is the shining example of Murphy's Law. Everything will go wrong. And you need to have that confidence and perseverance in yourself to go forward because you need to push yourself. And the Evil Dead production is the shining example of that. I love the movie even outside of that, but the production of what they read through made me respect it even more. So again, now I'm gonna shut up.
Yeah, I'm like, when you were saying like it's scary, like I don't know if I'd say this movie is scary, but there are a lot of.
It's creepy and disturbing, though. Yeah,
I would say
he gives
like
that
realistic, scary, like panic, scary.
Yeah, like
what the
I
fuck
mean,
is going on? Scary.
It does give that like kind of creepy, uncomfortable atmosphere, kind of.
Right.
Like, seriously, when she's eating the fucking glass, dear God.
Oh God!
I had to close
I
my eyes because I remember that in the trailer. I'm like, I'm closing my eyes. I don't give a fuck.
Yeah, that was the part that just made me go.
Alyssa Sutherland was. Oh God, she was fucking phenomenal.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
like the part that made me cringe was when she had like what was it, like the needle like towards like the girl's
yeah.
I was ready
anything
for
with
that.
eyes. Anything with eyes makes me cringe.
Eyes and nails. With how
yes,
her
eyes
nails were
was like
in the
coming
movie,
out.
I was expecting something with nails. I was expecting
me,
like I thought she was gonna like rip and like her nails were gonna come off. I expected that.
For me, eyes, nails, teeth, and tongues.
Oh yeah,
those are like the big ones. Like, oh no, but
that
like
one scene too.
Yeah, like I wouldn't say the movie's scary, but there were just a lot of moments where Drew and I were just looking at each other like, oh shit.
It was about 100 times.
I will say this is, I don't think this has ever happened while I was watching a horror movie, but I was eating candy while I was watching it, and I had to stop eating. Like while I was watching, I had to stop eating. Like I'm like, I can't, because like I felt to be fair, I have been having stomach problems the past couple days. That might be it, but it's also I was fine when I went in, so that might have been also been like, yeah, this is a you stop.
Yeah, but wow.
And I love
the fact that a horror movie managed to do that is like,
it made me more hungry. I don't know what you're talking about.
I just really wanted an omelet after that scene where she was with the egg.
Those little Halloween eye chocolates.
But yeah, I agree. Yeah, let's see where she's sitting there throwing the eggs in a fucking thing.
At first, I was like, "Those are golden at this point. Why are you wasting the eggs? These really are demons."
Like, okay, so this is what they mean by the high production value, because that must have been half the budget right there.
Eggs?
Seriously,
yeah, eggs were so expensive.
You weren't lying, man. Eggs are really fucking.
They really are expensive.
Well, you have chickens, so I guess it doesn't really apply to you. But
Yeah, pretty much.
me who has to go to Walmart to buy eggs, they're very expensive.
Yeah,
They're like
exactly.
$15 a carton now.
Oh
so-
wow.
Oh
Oh
Jesus!
wow.
Okay, not that hyperbolic, but like the last time I checked, the last time I was
Like
at
12.
a grocery store, I think they were about $10 a carton.
Yeah.
I think I've seen it for like I saw some for like 3. I'm like, that's not too bad.
Yeah,
And
but I live in a rich area, so
Yeah, you do.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
do.
for me, like at first I was kind of confused. Like, oh, they're doing the big Deadite, the big like true Deadite form at the end is the thing.
I
Okay,
love
I mean,
spider monsters, man. I thought that was awesome.
yeah, I
Oh,
mean,
That was
God,
great.
yes, that was really fucking
No,
cool.
I
that
was
was-
so
Yeah, 'cause-
excited when I saw that.
yeah, because I mean, I was confused at first, but then when I actually got to see it in action, I'm like, oh shit, this is badass.
Mhm.
although
And it's
Sorry,
not,
go
and
ahead.
this isn't the first time we've seen like the Kandarian demon or the evil force like in the flesh before. We saw it in Evil Dead 2, and we saw it in the form of Thog in Ash vs. Evil Dead.
Yeah.
yeah.
So I thought this new
Although-
form was interesting.
Ironically, I actually didn't think of the thing. I was just so enamored with what was going on that I didn't. And the thing is my favorite movie, so the fact that I didn't think of it is
My God.
amazing.
Spoiler alert
But,
for your.
Yeah,
But but one thing I did see when they were grabbing the pizza and like the girl was like sipping the soda and they were doing all that like right before the earthquake started, and you pan over and you see the wood chipper. I'm like, they better fucking pay that off.
Yeah.
They better be throwing a goddamn demon into that fucking wood chipper at the fucking
That's
end of the
what-
movie.
That's what about this movie. They
They
I-
better
also-
fucking pay that off.
I have a question. Like, what is even a wood chipper doing in that garage? Like,
I
what-
have
what-
no idea.
Who gives a
Who gives a
fuck?
fuck? He gave us a
Furniture or
chainsaw and a
something.
wood chipper. That's all I
I
care about.
immediately
I mean,
went to Fargo.
yeah.
I immediately thought of Fargo. I'm like, holy shit, this is the greatest blood film.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh yeah.
yeah, they foreshadowed a lot of the weapons in this movie before
do.
anything happened, like the scissors,
Oh, they do.
the
Yeah.
wood chipper, the shotgun.
Yep.
Seriously,
They
man,
love
what is
the
a
little things with that,
what is
yeah.
a fucking chainsaw doing in an apartment building? I mean,
Right.
who gives a fuck? Who cares? It's badass.
The
It's
chainsaw, whatever.
possible that there was like something down the road and they couldn't like have the gear outside. Maybe it was because it was like gonna rain, so they're like, okay, let's put it in this parking garage for now. I don't know. Just at this point, who gives a fuck? Like, you know, like
Who cares? It was badass.
it
Yeah.
was. Oh god, it was great. And like I will say, the effects, like when it's not CG, like it still works. But the thing is, as I mentioned before, like if there is a reason for the CG, then it's fine. Like as I mentioned in the John Wick review, like there's so many people that get shot in that fucking movie that like hooking up blood squibs for every person would be a nightmare. So it's like, okay, CGI makes it. Here, the CGI works because it's the over exaggerated tone of Evil Dead that makes it work. Would I prefer practical? Yes. But the CGI still works, and I really liked that as well. And I liked how it expanded the lore. Like you have the Kandarian demon, like be able to like form into itself. I don't think we've ever seen that. Like the fact that like it became like a 3-person like thing was really, really cool. I really liked that. And then you have the stuff with the priests. I thought that was really awesome. Like I'd like how it like even just a little bit like expand. Like I'm all for expanding lore. Like I love it when
Me too.
when people do that in a good if it's done well. And I really liked that.
from what I remember in Evil Dead 2, when the Kandarian demon showed up, I thought I remember we saw like a whole bunch of like faces inside of it. Remember they were talking like, "He's dead, victory is ours." So I don't think that's the first time we've ever seen that.
Well, I mean, like in terms of like actually seeing the beast form itself, as well as clearly being 3 different entities in one. Those are just faces in, you know, thing. This is like 3 people, like actually you see them forming, like you see them sticking their arms and their fucking legs into her body, and it's like, oh god, it was so cool. But it's like that was like the first time we saw that, and like that was really cool. So yeah, like, and I really liked I liked how like they did have some sort of like recognition of the fact that like, yeah, you done fucked up, Danny. So like, because you never really like, at least from what I remember, maybe you can provide a couple examples, maybe you know it better than me, Devin, but of like recognizing that someone did something and they brought the horror into the situation. Sure, you have that in like meta stuff, I would assume, but like they actually have like several points in the movie where they do recognize the fact that like, yeah, if this kid fucking just went along, it would have been fine, but he had to go into that fucking creepy basement and pull out the records and the book.
Yeah, like she even
so-
warns him right off the begin bat. You know, she said, "Look, this
is your fault."
Exactly. Yeah.
The book has teeth.
Seriously,
it's covered in bugs.
It's like a review I read on Letterboxd said. So somebody in the comments is like, the blood literally drips. Come on, they literally saw a book that just absorbed blood and just opened it, and like to be honest, that's pretty fucking metal, man. I mean,
oh yeah,
exactly. I'm like,
and the book itself is very metal too.
Exactly.
I really liked the redesign. I didn't care for the. I know I'm just constantly shitting on the remake, but I don't care. I don't like.
It's
the movie.
okay. I'm with you, John.
I will say because the thing is, the reason I didn't like it because it was like trying so hard to be scary, like they wrote writing in the book like die and don't read this. It's like really, you're really doing like you're like actually putting that in the book like. They're already open the book. You don't need to put "Don't read this" in the fucking screen. Oh, look, it's so scary. Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Was that in the original book?
No,
there was no writing. I could have
absolutely not.
sworn that there was writing. Like
It was
that in
like
the original book.
it was like Latin. I assume there was like like Latin.
No, it said it was
Maybe
ancient
I think I'm
Sumerian.
just tweaking
Ancient
out.
Sumerian. That was it.
Ancient
Thank you.
Sumerian. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Thank you, Mark.
Yeah.
I knew it wasn't Latin, but it was like some older language.
Yeah.
But yes, ancient Sumerian. I like how this was just pictures. Like it just predicts. Like I love that. Like again, pictures worth 1,000 words, and it just worked. It did have some like there was some scrolls in certain pages, like you kind of see it for like half a second. But it was mostly just the pictures, and it took up the entire like how big it was. I really liked the redesign here. I wish the only thing I hate is that they don't have the face. I love the face.
Yeah,
that's one of my notes.
Evil Dead
like,
2 is the best. Is the best that the book has ever looked. The original looked way too waxy looking.
Yeah,
it didn't look like flesh. It looked like somebody melted a candle and that's what came out. And then the third one, it's too like nice looking. Like what I mean? Like I can't like with Army of Dark. Like I can't like. I know it's not nice, but like it's just like too clean looking. It doesn't look horrifying. It just looks.
John,
like
that's the one you think he was inspired by to use for this story.
Yeah,
was
like
clean
he just
looking
painted
one.
a face on it. You know. But I wish, like, if they spent more time on it practically, and I think Lee Cronin could have done it really well, like having that face like pop up and like have it like, especially what I was kind of hoping for. Unfortunately, it was just bugs when it was moving underneath the burlap sack. I was like, oh, are they actually gonna make it move? Like it is human flesh technically. Oh, are they gonna make it move? But no, it was just the bugs. That could be really cool. Like,
I mean, you can see like the teeth moving.
See, I wish like blood
I mean, like
on
the
it and
cover
the
of
face
human
came
flesh.
out or something like that.
Yeah, like something like that. Oh, that would be really cool.
It's like
I brought this up earlier. Like I love how mean the Deadites were in this, and I loved their dialogue. Like when she called her like you. I'm glad to be free of you titty sucking parasites. I'm like, oh shit!
That was a great line.
Good. I hope. Honestly, I might tell my mom that. I hope she starts calling me that because that's like
smelling yourself like
instead of
something my mother
hey
would have said
John,
to me.
just like hey, you kitty sucking parasite, get your ass over here.
And look, my mother used to tell me to go play in traffic. I mean, she would have said that stuff like that to me.
Yeah, and it's the visceral nature of it. I love that. And again, like killing kids, as Drew was saying, killing kids. That's just a plus.
Yeah,
for me.
they went there.
I was so excited when I saw that kid's arm.
I was kind of hoping the little girl would become a deadite, like she goes flying across the room.
Okay, that would have
or across the
fucking
ceiling
awesome.
or something like that.
Yeah.
I think it would have been like
Yeah.
that could have actually been like ignoring like that just being awesome in and of itself. It would have been really kind of fucked up in its own weird way that Danny would have been the only survivor along with Beth.
Yeah.
I'm like the only kid who survives.
The one that
Like he
started it.
brought it. He killed his entire family, yet he lived. That could have been disturbing. That could have been really cool.
Yeah,
Yeah, you got to live with it.
Yeah.
yeah, and think about it
Yeah,
like
the
this,
guilt, like you got to live with it.
and think about it like this, like the reason, I mean, they're basically to blame for bringing the dead in each of the movies. They're basically to blame for bringing the Deadites back.
Yeah.
Hell,
I mean, nothing.
in Ash versus Evil Dead, Ash brings the Deadites back because he was stoned and he was horny.
Yep.
Yeah,
that was true.
I mean, that's
You know, it's
just.
funny,
I
too.
mean, to be fair, that's classic
That's
Ash.
Ash.
But, like,
That's classic
that's,
Ash.
you know,
Zach.
I was like, why the fuck do you still have the book? Fucking idiot.
Devin, I know Zach in the comments, he was asking about like how we would rank the whole franchise.
Okay,
Like,
I
what
can't
would
believe
you
that's
guys?
Evil Dead 2 at number 5.
all right, so Evil Dead 2 is your number 5.
Yeah, it's the last one. I'm like,
What?
I'm like, what the fuck?
How do you have the remake at
This
number
is Zach. He has terrible taste.
Terrible taste.
Jesus Christ.
It what? I just
I love Evil Dead.
Nice.
That's a great
Oh,
fucking
there's the anger
clip,
face.
man.
That is.
All right, Devin, just name your ranking. It'll be okay. Just name your ranking of the Evil Dead franchise, including.
Breathe,
That's the
Devin,
thing.
breathe.
That's the thing. It's hard for me to rank them all. I mean, I put the remake last, but the first three, those are like some of my favorite movies of all
Yeah.
time. I love them all. I love them all for different reasons.
Yes.
I love the first one for being a straightforward, like goofy,
Mm-hmm.
more serious horror movie, and of course all of the important things it's done for independent filmmaking.
Yes.
I love Evil Dead. I love Evil Dead 2 for the blend of the horror and comedy. I think Army of Darkness is a great fucking comedy, and it has my favorite interpretation of Ash.
Right.
Yes. Yes. It's more cartoon.
London Bridge is falling
Falling
down, falling down, falling down.
Dear lady.
I will say, if I had to,
I was just watching
rank
that scene
them-
earlier.
I mean, they're all good. Well, except the remake. Oh, they're all good. But if I were to rank them, obviously remake would be last. But then I would probably pick. Then I would probably pick Army of Darkness, then The Show, then Rise, then Evil Dead 2, then Evil Dead 1. If I like from bottom to top.
That I think if I were to rank them all, I pretty much would say the same thing, except I would switch out the first and second Evil Dead. I would put Evil Dead
But
2.
again, I'm one of the few
first.
people that prefers the first one.
Not fair enough. Yeah.
When Drew gets back, I'll ask him like how he'd rank them all.
Yeah.
That is if you've seen all.
because Although I remember when Rome texted the fucking chat after he was like, it was so fucking good. I'm like, okay, thank God the one person that hates the remake liked the movie. Thank fucking God. That gives me hope for this fucking movie. Because a lot of people were comparing it to the remake. I'm like, oh God, oh fuck, no. And
it has that tone, but the formula worked with this one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Drew, how would Zach asked the question, even though some of his ranking was pretty blasphemous. How would you rank the Evil Dead movies? I'm pretty sure you've seen them all, right?
Yeah.
Including the
I like
TV
one.
show.
I like 2. Army of Darkness is one of my favorite movies. The remake, it was okay. I liked it. It was kind of stupid, but I liked it. And Ash versus Evil Dead, I really liked. Did I miss any?
This one.
This one is pretty cool.
So you
I
would
don't dislike any of them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
like
same here.
They're all
same here.
For at least for me anyway, except for John, they work for different reasons. So you would say Army of Darkness is your favorite?
Yeah.
Okay.
And this one.
Mark, how would you rank them?
Oh God, man, geez. I remember Army of Darkness was the first one I saw. I'm actually it was my friends who introduced me to that because I never saw it growing up, actually, believe it or not. But I mean, I was grown when I finally saw it. I was like, God damn, this is fucking awesome. But honestly, I think I think I'm sorry, John, but I do think Evil Dead 2 is a better one, even though it's very close. It's very close. I mean, honestly, they're both 5-star movies,
and it's a great movie. I'm not denying it's a great movie. Yeah. It's just people need to calm down a little bit. That's all.
No, I mean, but I mean, I still have a ton of respect for the first one. The first one's a real achievement, and first one's a real achievement in independent filmmaking. Like you said, I mean, you made a strong case for it being the greatest independent film of all time. But I mean, at least for the greatest independent horror film of all time. But I mean, and you know, I'd put this one somewhere probably number 3, probably just above Army of Darkness. Although I still really love Army of Darkness. So
yeah,
I just think Evil Dead 2 really nailed that blend of horror and humor. So I mean, it was, you know, so I think that was when Ash was just.
Army of Darkness is Ash at his best.
Army of Darkness is Ash at his best. I agree. That is.
Bad Ash. And
you're good Ash.
Quotes. You lose some of the horror, I think, but I mean,
but it still works.
And I will say, Army of Darkness, great. For me, maybe I just noticed this because I went to school first, so I didn't notice it a little bit more. But I will say the third movie does have a lot of script problems. It feels like it was written in like 2 hours, and Sam Raimi was like, "Okay, it's done." And Dino De Laurentiis has looked at it. He's like, "Okay, we filmed this." It's like it feels kind of like that, like because the thing is, the reason Evil Dead's 1 and 2 work. Well, I'm saying at the time before there was any other movies, Evil Dead 1 and 2 worked because they were movies that took place in one location and there wasn't a lot of plot. So they worked, and there's still a lot to them, mainly characterization and horror and the effects, like everything else. But with Army of Darkness, it was the first time that it was like an actual movie, if that makes sense. Like, one, it's mainstream. It's like, it's got a budget, all this other shit. So I feel like Sam Raimi had trouble, even though he's a very good writer and he's written like really good shit, like outside of Evil Dead. I feel like he was in that Evil Dead mindset, and like he couldn't get out of that while writing Army of Darkness, because like he was just in that, like, it takes place in one location sort of thing. So it and because of that, Army of Darkness kind of suffers. It just doesn't have much of a story and much of a plot, but it's like the first time it should have a story and should have a plot. So it kind of suffers on that end. Is it most enjoyable out of the three? Probably, because it's the most mainstream. It doesn't have a lot of horror. Not a lot of people like horror, and it's fun. It's enjoyable. It's still got a fun effects and all that shit. So it works for like the mainstream audience. But for me, like, I noticed like that sometimes the script is like a little bit off. Like it like just doesn't totally work, and I could see the problems with it, like in the overarching, sort of thing.
Rome, how would you rank them?
See, it's tough because I love 1 and 2, so it can always go back and forth with me. Like, 1 for the same reasons as, like, you mentioned, Devin. 2, obviously, the blend of comedy and horror. But it always goes back and forth with me because it depends on the mood I'm in. 3 is a great, like, comedy. Ash Williams, Senate Story. That's great. So that's my third one. And I'll say, Ash versus Evil Dead is number 4 of the series. And then 5, Evil Dead remake, which sucks balls.
Zach asked this question, and honestly, does the TV series wrap up the storyline of the original trilogy? No, because it ends on a fucking cliffhanger.
It ends on a cliffhanger, man.
Yes, so Zach, we know you don't like how it ends on cliffhanger, so don't watch it if you haven't seen it. Don't watch it.
Yeah,
I saw the question, but I couldn't answer it. I don't know.
It kind of wraps up the original trilogy, but then it has its own arcs and threads and storylines that then don't get completed because Stars fucking canceled it. So,
and I know we're an hour in, but I still feel like there's still a bunch of stuff to talk about this.
There is.
Oh god.
And the question I'm going to ask, and John, you will go last. What were some of your guys' favorite moments? And we'll go around. And again, no one interrupt.
I'll
So
mute
for
myself.
me, like some of my favorite moments, I loved the where they're looking through the peephole and they see the mother just going around like killing those two,
Mhm.
and you see the kid like fling across the room. I love when she attacks. I think it was Beth with the cheese grater.
Yes. Oh
Yes, that
God.
was a great scene.
That was awesome. I loved that part, and of course the big fight at the end with the Thing.
Yes.
Like and fucking they used the fucking chainsaw and the wood chipper. God, it was so badass. I
God,
loved it.
yes.
Drip.
Sorry, I keep hitting the shortcut to unmute, and I'm clicking on something else. People with the kid, definitely number one. I laughed so hard when that happened. I had no like it jump scared me with humor. The spider is definitely my favorite. I didn't realize that like when the kids were like crawling inside of her that's what was going to happen, and then I saw
Me
it. I was
either.
very excited.
Fuck.
Yeah.
I kind of wish they showed it a little more though, but like just the little peek around the car, I thought that was enough to get the job done. What was the other one? I was thinking of it while he was talking. That's it. It'll come back to me.
Okay. Mark.
I'll go at the end if I think of it.
Honest, Jesus, so many of them. Honestly, when she stood up on the car, whatever, with the chainsaw and said, "Come get some," I fucking yelled.
Oh, that was so
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I little in the middle of the theater, I just went, "Fuck yeah!" Just yelled out. But there were just so many great moments, I mean, just seeing the chainsaw, I just freaked out. I'm like, oh yeah, the fucking chainsaw, But one little moment was when she's listening to the record, to the Necronomicon, and Alyssa Sutherland, Ellie, is behind her. You see her crawling in the wall to the room, like, fuck, man. Oh God! Did you see her standing behind her? She sees her in the window. It's like, oh, God damn! That's a great moment, man. That and the go back to the, I think it's the tattoo needle in the in her eye. Jesus Christ! Yeah, that really freaked me out. And the glass, eating the glass.
Oh, one of my favorites too.
Yeah.
Yum yum. Rob.
I mean, oh, wow. There really is a lot. The scene, like the scene with the people, the badass that happens at the end. The scene where the Cassie like takes the spear and just stabs.
Oh yes,
right in the mouth.
Yes,
yeah. That was awesome. I mean,
she's making her. I thought that was cool too. She actually cuts the head off the fucking dog. Like, hey, I like this kid.
Yeah, I know, right?
And Brum.
I want to say a couple of scenes, mostly with Beverly. That's not the ones we haven't mentioned yet. One was the eating glass scene with the jar. The reaction to that with the people I was with, everybody was just really uncomfortable watching her eat glass. Just like the slowness of it and the creepiness and the disturbed part of it. The other part was with Beverly with the CGI blood, with how you see the CGI blood coming out of her eyes and everything. I thought that worked really well for a CGI blood. I was really impressed with how they were able to pull that off, because the fans, the people who were in the theater with, were all gasping when they saw that she was turning into a deadite. Nobody would. I don't know how many people were fans of like the shows or the franchise, but that was another really good scene. And also the elevator scene when Ellie gets possessed and the whole demon thing and getting tied up. Obviously, it's a little homage to the rape tree, but also just its own thing too, which I thought was great too.
The rape elevator.
Oh yeah,
I thought she was gonna get raped by the elevator too. I really thought
the homage to The Shining. Jesus Christ, that was awesome.
Yeah, and the stats too. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And last but not least, John.
The whole movie.
Yeah, amen.
Nice.
All right, that works.
If I were, I mean, you named everyone like we're repeating themselves with the same fucking shit. I will say, if I had to pick one that wasn't said, was when Bridget stabbed Danny, but then he grabbed the lighter fluid and then burned her fucking face with it.
Oh,
That was
yeah.
really
That was a great scene.
Yeah,
too.
that was.
I didn't realize that was CGI
lighter
when it was
fluid
coming out,
blade.
the blood coming out of her face. I didn't realize that was CGI. I thought that was real. Not gonna lie.
The CGI was
Because-
really good in this.
Oh,
It was
absolutely.
really
Yeah.
because it was believable. That was
Take
the
notes,
thing.
Marvel.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, because this had like no production budget. The VFX artists had probably had time, didn't have a gun to their head, so they probably actually had fucking time to, like, fucking. And we were just mentioning this before the review. We were talking about found footage movies. Troll Hunter, that was made like over a decade ago for like $10 million, and the CGI in that looks better than the Marvel stuff nowadays.
Yeah.
Like, that's saying something. So there's that as well.
I
But
mean,
yeah, this
I
whole
mean,
movie is excellent.
Look, the little Norwegian movie I saw on Netflix last year, Troll. I think you saw it too, Rob. That one had better CGI. That movie was made for like nothing compared
It
to
was.
fucking
Yeah.
Marvel films and shit.
Wow.
yeah, and this movie, good CGI blood, Winnie the
Mhm.
Pooh, Blood and Honey, bad CGI blood, but that was just a
Yeah.
bad movie.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh no!
I mean,
oh no! Pooh's coming to kill us! Ah!
I mean, even as someone who's a little bit more forgiving over, even I admit the CGI blood was fucking terrible.
It was. God.
All right, so I mean, we're an hour 11 minutes in.
I mean, we could talk about this for another fucking hour.
Hell
'cause
yeah.
we
Yeah.
all love Evil Dead. I would say Evil Dead's probably the best horror franchise because even though
Absolutely.
I
Oh,
don't like the remake,
God, yeah, it is.
100%.
Jesus
even
Christ.
though I don't like the horror, I don't like the remake. I will say, at the very most, as I said, it is fine as its own thing. If you forget that it's an Evil Dead movie and don't even, think about it, you'll have an okay time with it. And I will give it that. I will say, for me, the second best is probably Nightmare on Elm Street because every entry delivers something at least good. With the exception of the remake, which again also just sucks, but it had good ideas. I will give it that. It had good ideas, like in terms of Freddy being innocent and that kind of shit. But because every entry like delivers something, So I would say
Yeah.
those two are probably the best in terms of quality because
Yeah.
the worst one in terms of the originals for Nightmare is the sixth one, but even then it's so bad it's good. It's hilarious.
Mhm.
But
Guilty pleasure movie.
yeah.
Anyway.
In conclusion, do we recommend you check out Evil Dead Rise?
Yes! Yes!
I'm seeing it
And-
again tomorrow, and I cannot fucking wait.
And
On Monday.
and keep in mind, if you see it, you'll get an extra 500 points if you use Regal Unlimited.
Or AMC Stubbs A-List.
Overall, it's a great movie. Go watch it, and stay tuned next week for our review of Beau is Afraid.
Devin is definitely afraid to review that movie.
Devin, why do you do this to us?
I guess this is your punishment for canceling Insight on me.
You canceled Inside on your fucking self. Shut up.
I gave you the option to push it back another week, and you're like, "No, I'm canceling anyway." So that's on you, man.
Who cares? But yeah, that's our review. Subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to all of our individual channels, and always remember, Dead by Dawn. Dead by Dawn.
Dead by Dawn. Dead by Dawn.